Thank you for joining us once again on another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. This is episode 186, and it's all about how to store coffee at home well. And by well, I mean a way that preserves the coffee's freshness, vibrancy, flavor profile, as you rest the coffee for 2, 3, 4, or even 4+ weeks. Now, it may seem like a small little detail, but it makes a huge difference, and we discuss all of that here on this episode. Also, before we jump into it, just want to remind you, if you want to pick up some tasty coffee, head over to mirrorcoffeeroasters.com and snag a few bags. Anyways, let's get into this. I'm so pumped about some of the stuff that we got going on. Got an email this morning that some goods are on the way.
Oh, nice.
Getting shipped in a UPS truck headed for the roastery, so that's exciting.
I love that.
But yeah, lots of good news on that front. So
did you catch the hailstorm?
I did not. I just heard
it was
it,
insane.
and I was like, I don't know, what's going on out there, and then until I let you in, I was like,
yeah. So it was wild, so wild. So out of the blue, it looked like it was snowing because it was hailing for a good 15 minutes. I was driving back from one meeting to another, and then I was like, what the heck? It was insane. It was wild. But what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, I broke out the mirror hat. Haven't seen me wear this in a long time.
I know, dude. I wanted to wear mine, but mine's kind of crusty. I want one, but we don't have any more left.
We don't have any more,
so
right?
That's a limited edition.
Yeah, so it is a limit.
Maybe,
I think it's the last one.
Maybe we need to drop like a one-off piece of merch just for kicks.
You know, speaking of that, some of my favorite coffee merch has been, I still love that beanie from Moxie, the blue one that I have.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
The Barista Magazine beanies that fit my head the best. Yeah. I absolutely love them. And then I've been crushing, what's it called? What was that shirt? Oh, the Black Cat Espresso.
Nice.
Intelligentsia shirt too. There's been some fun merch. I was looking at Big Face. Have you seen Big Face's merch?
No.
Dude, it's insane. I mean, one, it's priced like Drew House or any other fashion brand. It's like $200 hoodie almost.
Have you seen April Coffee's roasting Crocs?
No. Alex needs those. That's a big shout out to Alex. Alex is the Croc king, dude.
Guys, I'm not laughing at April at all. I think they're probably some of the more forward thinking. Like, I'll give Patrick his roses. I think he's pretty forward thinking. I respect the heck out of him. But when I saw they were dropping some roasting Crocs, I was like, this is wild. I know I don't need these, but I don't know why I'm being drawn to them. But I don't need them.
Yeah.
But I'm being drawn to that add to cart button.
Yeah.
But I don't need them. I don't know.
Dude, anyway. I want to see you wear Crocs. I want to see you wear Crocs.
I used to wear Crocs. I used to be a big fan. Fan back in the day. They're great because I'm not a big fan of sandals. But Crocs are great because they're easy to slide on. They got the holes for some aeration. They're a great summer.
They're light, dude. I have some Drew House Crocs. I bust those out on and off. I shouldn't bust them out for the pod. Maybe next time I'll bust them out for the pod. People can see my Crocs.
Right, let's pour some Batchy. At the beginning of every episode, we pour some drip coffee. Pour some drip coffee and talk about what we're sipping on. So, Serge, what are you brewing lately at home?
Oh, today I've been brewing, 1 hour new coffee.
Nice.
I've been really liking that. On top of that, I've been brewing the 2K Ute. I haven't bought coffee yet. I need to start buying coffee, especially because I'm not behind the bar. But I need to start buying coffee a lot because I'm running low. I'm honestly, this is sad news. Not sad. It's happy news, but also sad to say that I only drink Mirror coffee at home. I'm a loyal customer.
It's okay. It's okay, you guys. Sergi is stepping into his home barista phase hard. And guess what? That's all going to change. He's going to start freezing coffee. He's going to start vacuum sealing, brewing upside down, sifting out fines out of his grinds. It's about to get wild.
It's called fun employment, dude. I'm employed by fun. I'm a professional home barista.
Incredible. What do you think of the batch, the drip?
It's not as great as my brew of the Ethiopia today. This is not an Ethiopian coffee. I'm just talking about preference wise. It's not. This is decent. Again, it's similar to the last batch of coffee that we had on the previous episode. I thought it was good, solid, drinkable. I don't think very like lemon curd. Are you getting that? Have you had lemon curd? You know lemon curd.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. It's like a lemon curd. It's almost like, it's not necessarily like quote unquote yogurty, but the acidity is like, it's kind of thick, juicy, bright.
Yeah. Compared to the last batch brew, I'm just using tap water for this one.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately. I mean, even though our tap water is pretty great, actually.
I was going to say it's slightly
in
muted,
the ballpark.
But did you change the grind size?
It's not as sweet and juicy as regular brews, I think, with the third wave packets that I've been using. But it's not bad. Like, our water's by far not terrible. It's still drinkable. Like, if you were to just revert to just tap water, it's great. But so it doesn't have that juicy candied sweetness that I think sometimes comes from really nice dialed in water.
Harder and dialed in water make it so crispy, like just crispy, like similar to like stepping outside on a sunny day in like fresh snow, and the sound of like, it's kind of what I taste when I taste a crispy cup of coffee. It's the sound of crunching through like frozen snow, or like light just hitting you really nicely in the winter day.
Yeah, this water makes things a little more sweeter and rounder. It kind of mellows things out a little bit. But
that's why it kind of reminds me of lemon curd. It's got that, almost reminds me of that texture, that sweeter lemon kind of flavor to it.
There's something
grapefruit
on the back end, like after you swallow, like that taste that comes right back. I think it's got like a little bit of like, I don't know, candy sweetness. I don't know. But
it just, especially with that water, I think the challenge of brewing, like, I don't know what coffee this is, but the challenge of brewing a coffee like this with tap water or with softer water is that the acidity tastes muddle.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it feel round, because there's a lack of clarity in the cup. And I feel like maybe slightly harder water on this would just make the acidity pop slightly more, but who am I? What do I know?
Yeah. That makes sense. It's I brewed this with some of the other water on drip, and it tasted better before. But this is a Colombian coffee from Bots Coffee Roasters.
Nice.
So it's great. I think my favorite brew of this was actually on the Aiden. Last time I brewed it with like the third wave water recipe that I've been using.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, actually that last time that I brewed it on the Aiden with the nice water was better than probably most of my pour over recipes. It just tasted juicy, nice, hit it in the ballpark, great mouthfeel.
Totally.
Some interesting stuff on it. Yeah. But
yeah, it's nice. Like, Bots is fairly on the, like, a light spectrum of roasts.
No, that's what I heard. Actually, this is my first Bots coffee. It's pretty solid. I mean, I guess I understand why people like them. But and this isn't everything, but on the color reader, it's pretty much sitting around like wherever most of our coffees are, like right in the middle,
That's nice.
Yeah. Pretty much around where like the thermal shock is sitting at.
Oh, nice.
So it's right there.
Did you already tell people that we're dropping?
I mean, the no label batch is out there, so somebody picked it up. So surprise.
Yeah.
Hopefully that coffee's dropping soon. So that's very nice.
So
I've been drinking that and enjoying it. But
yeah, me too. I've been liking that coffee, but honestly, like the 2K Ute just at home, it hits everything I love about a coffee.
All right. Let's get into today's episode, which is all about coffee storage.
Yes.
And this is kind of building building on a video that, we dropped on our YouTube channel. This was maybe like a month ago on coffee storage solutions, where I just did a blind tasting of the same roast 4 weeks after roast. One that was like a bag full with the zipped, ziplocked, sealed on top, plus the heat seal, untouched for 4 weeks. Some, in a canister, and then some just a little bit of coffee in a bag left outside, in the middle here at the office. And I was just curious to see. And the results were actually pretty shocking. Like shocking in the sense of like, it's crazy that something like storage can change a coffee. It can make it go from tasting just round, kind of mellow, a little bland. That's it. And a coffee that's stored really, really well is like juicy, vibrant, clear, zippy. It's got this lively acidity. And I get it. If you don't, I don't know. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but if you're not so picky about your coffee flavor, it might not matter that much, because you can still pick up some of those same similar flavor qualities are still coming through in different ways that you store it.
Right.
Just one is like really nice and the others are like okay.
Yeah.
But if you're buying coffees that are a little more expensive, even if you're buying any of our coffees, I would recommend you at least have some kind of process or system of how you're storing coffee at home.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the kicking this off is just saying that, hey, like there's a difference between how you store different coffees. And the biggest issue to coffee storage, I know light is a big one, so you don't want to have your coffee just out in blazing sun.
Right.
But the biggest issue is really oxidation. So oxygen getting into your coffee and making it go stale, which stale coffees just taste flat, boring, and a little bit of papery, cardboardy.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a fine line also between, because we talk about how letting coffee rest is crucial to getting all of that flavor out, that the good stuff in the coffee, right? So resting coffee is important, but it almost feels like talking about this, it could communicate to some people that there's a paradox between coffee storage and resting. Question to you is, I'm curious what your take would be on, if you don't have the best measures of basically storing coffee, should you still rest for like a month or two? Like, for example, let's say you don't have a way to vacuum seal it.
Yeah.
You don't have, all you have maybe is just that Ziploc, or is just that bag that you got, from the roasting company. Yeah. Especially, I know we're going to talk about this, 5-pound bags, right? So should you still let that coffee rest, or is there a different parameters of one, freshness to peak flavor,
Yeah, I think you should always let your coffee rest. That's it. And we'll talk about some solutions here briefly. But yeah, that's you bring up a good point, is like coffee should be rested for sure. And oftentimes, the lighter the coffees, you kind of want to rest them a little longer, but 3-4 weeks past roast date before cracking into them. But that doesn't, not all resting is the same.
Yes, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah, just because you can rest coffee for 3-4 weeks doesn't mean you've rested it well.
Yeah.
Or you've preserved its qualities.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can rest it for 3 to 4 weeks and it just tastes worse.
Yeah.
Probably. But you're also not getting the most out of your coffee.
Yep.
So, being intentional about how you store coffee, how you're resting coffee is a big factor. And so, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, coffee canisters. Coffee canisters, I know it's like an external thing that you have to purchase, but there are some perks, because coffee canisters, literally they try to solve the problem of oxidation, which is the biggest factor in aging, degrading or stale coffee. And so you have some, actually you were the one that got me on fellow canisters.
I have a lot. I have 4.
You've had them for a while. What's your experience been like? You store probably a lot of coffee in
all
there.
All of my coffee. Yeah. All of the coffee I consume is stored, or at least 90% of the coffee. And again, I let the cat out of the bag when I said majority of what I'm drinking these days is mirror. So there's a lot of benefits to those canisters, in my opinion. Is one, it might be a pricey like investment, but the reality is those canisters can last you forever, for a long time, that is. The mechanism on them, I haven't used the newest one. Maybe I should cop one of the newer fellow ones. That would be a fun one to experiment with. But the old twist tops, where you twist to get the air out, and then the little valve thing drops and it says green, that means like it's good. You got majority of the air out. I don't think it gets all of the air out. That's my hesitation. I don't have any way to prove that, but I don't think it does, simply because sometimes the top will pop. So I think it doesn't have a pressure release valve somewhere that kind of allows it to stay sealed the whole time. But anyway, what I like about them, again, is that you can get all that air out to slow down oxidation in it. And you have the one that's see-through, the glass. I don't use the glass one, which I'm not saying you shouldn't. Aesthetically, I like how the glass one looks. Because they just look clean, and you can see the coffee beans. You can throw in a little paper in there that describes. You don't have to, like, sometimes I'm so picky about those containers, like adding a little piece of tape on the outside, and then you remove the tape and you have to clean it and all. I would love to have a glass one where I just slide the paper in. The other thing is, depends on where you're putting that glass thing, because light is going to also play a big factor. Is if you have a glass one, I definitely recommend putting it in a cupboard, or putting it in your pantry, or putting it away from light. So the door is closed on that. For me, it's, again, I store all of my containers under the counter, not on top of the counter. I rarely store coffee in any kind of form of hoppers. You know what I mean? Or even the dosing cups. Like I don't store anything on top. Everything's put away because I like how it looks. It looks clean. So there's a benefit for that. So I probably could benefit from a glass one. But I love the fact that the not glass ones, they're not going to break again.
Yeah, that's true.
It's an easier storage thing, less risk in that. And they function and work great. And there's different sizes. So again, depends on how much coffee you're consuming. For me, it's so easy to pop over to the roastery, scoop whatever we have left that, is probably, we'll still like to maintain freshness in our roast dates. If we have some left over, I'll scoop it, take it home, done, So I like the convenience, the usability about that. And when it comes to coffee storage, it gets the job done. Like I'm not worried about, once I get coffee from the roastery, I don't worry about roast date at all. Because no matter when I'm going to drink it, it's going to be fresh. Sometimes I get caught up, and like I've posted on Instagram where I'm like drinking coffee from December, it's March. Rarely does that happen. And guess what? Especially our Miller coffee, when I had one of our last December roasts, I brewed it at the end of February, like early March. And like it was like 2 weeks ago or last week, it tasted the best it's ever tasted.
Wow.
So I think the pro of using one of those fellow containers is that it still helps with resting, but it rests really well in that container. They're pretty great. And honestly, if you're like thinking about picking one up, I have like a small glass one. The small one's like very small. Like it's like 8 ounce.
It's less than 8 ounce actually. You can probably fit like 100, I don't know, 50 grams, maybe 170 grams. So it's just short of 8 ounces. So it's like, it works for smaller amounts. But for larger amounts, I'd definitely recommend getting the one that you have. Is like, it's great. It can fit way more in there. But
you're right. There's 3 different sizes now that I remember. That makes sense.
And they're great. Like, or you can look at Airscape, some of the other. The whole point is like, can you remove as much oxygen out so it's not oxidizing, but it also is still degassing even when you suck out all the oxygen out of these containers.
quick caveat to that. Would it be the same thing as someone taking coffee and putting it in a mason jar, sealing it off, and putting it in a dark spot?
I'm not 100% sure. I would still think that putting it into a mason jar without like a release valve or without a way for oxygen to get out, but also without a way to take out the oxygen, I think is the problem. Because once you get oxygen in there, you can't, like, there's mason jars or other jars don't have the opportunity to suck it out.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But there's the other caveat of, like, if you fill up a mason jar to the very top, that also might not be a bad idea because you're literally filling all the space with beans.
Yeah.
So it's less, there's less room for oxygen. Yeah. But I just don't know how degassing would work because it's still releasing some gases.
Exactly.
But apart from that, I think from my experiment, I've noticed is that a bag, if you buy a bag of coffee and it's heat sealed on the top, it's got a Ziploc feature that's sealed. And if you don't touch it for 4 weeks, that is probably the best way to store coffee to keep max freshness. The biggest problem, I think, is like if you're impatient, which is me oftentimes that I'm trying to work on, but like if you're impatient, you want to like crack it open, give it a sniff, literally cracking it open, smelling it, opening it, smelling it, opening it, doing a brew, and you realizing it's still too fresh and you trying to, that is the worst thing that you could do. I mean, even with those containers kind of limit that because you can literally suck out the oxygen. Yeah. But that's the worst thing that you can do with a bag of coffee is keep opening it up over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So our recommendation with keeping coffees at peak freshness while still letting them degas is buying smaller bags, and we'll get into that shortly, but buying smaller bags, keeping them sealed just as the roaster packed them and packaged them and sent them off to you, and just keeping it like that until you're ready to drink coffee. Mm-hmm. Keep your hands off of it. Just let it rest. And when you're in doubt, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if you have extra patience, just keep it till 4 weeks. And I guarantee you most coffee is probably going to taste just great at 4 weeks, especially if you have like an 8-ounce bag, 10-ounce bag. That's literally like 4 weeks. And then in a week, you'll probably be done with it if you're drinking like a cup or two a day. Yeah. So, that's something that I've learned in my experience, is the best. And something else is that the one-way valve actually is an important feature here because when coffee degasses, it displaces the oxygen. Mm-hmm. And when as it's displacing the oxygen, the one-way valve is literally letting oxygen leave the bag. Yeah. Because it's getting displaced. Yep. That's what a one-way valve
does. Back in the day when we had quote unquote cheaper, less expensive bags, the white flat bottom ones, and they would swell up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's literally what's going on. It's a bad valve. Yeah.
And so that's beneficial. Mm-hmm. The thing with having, like, if you buy like a 5-pound bag, the difficulty there is you're stuck opening it up a little bit, filling your hopper with it, or brewing a cup of coffee and then closing it, opening it up and closing it. That again is like the biggest issue. So that's why it's like, if you can buy like smaller bags, but buy multiple bags, so that you can keep some bags just sealed away fresh, and then you can just crack into one bag at a time.
I do have a solution for someone, because there is a benefit to buying a 5-pound bag. For us, like, for example, if you buy a mere 5-pound bag, you get a pretty good deal. You get one 8-ouncer, or you get a pound of coffee for free. If you're gonna equivalently buy, what is that, 10 8-ounce bags? Yeah. If you just buy a 5, you get it for free. And the way I would mitigate that, so if you have, if at home that you have a very basic generic a heat sealer, Like I bought one. Like we vacuum seal in our house. We vacuum seal everything.
Nice.
So if we open some chicken, for example, at the store, we're not gonna eat it all. Like, or if we buy a bigger family size thing of meat, we're not gonna eat it all. We'll portion it out, vacuum seal it, and put it in the freezer.
Nice.
It works. It's very convenient. So our vacuum sealer is like cheap one, $40, $30, right?
Yeah, they're not
so
that much.
what I would do if I bought a 5-pound bag of coffee is I would take one of the Atmos containers or one of the nice containers, put a pound of it in there, then take the 5-pound bag, reseal it. You can vacuum seal it in that bag because those bags are heat sealed, and the vacuum sealer that you would buy on Amazon or a cheap one is basically a heat sealer.
Will it?
It will heat seal it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you reseal it and put it away in your pantry and just use that. Again, open it up. Just don't cut too much so you have enough as the bag is getting smaller, you still have enough room to seal. Again, pour it in, reseal it. But the goal is to reseal it. And if you can get your cheap vacuum sealer to suck air out, that's even better.
Yeah, that's even better. But also, when you're resealing it, you probably don't want to do that too many times because you might be introducing some moisture, some condensation in there. So, if you could if you could separate it in half,
or half
of just set a half apart and then freeze the other half. Yeah. That would be prime.
But also, if for example you buy a 5-pound bag and you're consuming it over the course of 1 month, like I think for general consumption, like if you have a batch brewer at home, you're making coffee for maybe you, your spouse, your partner, you're making a family pot of coffee for breakfast once a day, right? You're probably going to go through 5 pounds in a month in 25 to 30 days. So portioning it out in 1-pounders, you're only going to open that bag up 4 times.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see what potential condensation in the bag.
You can build,
what some of the what effects of
Except
effects
I wouldn't freeze it. You don't. If you're using a bag of coffee in a month, you don't need to freeze it.
Oh, you mean just sealing it?
Just sealing it, vacuum sealing it, and just putting it in a cupboard.
Oh,
not freezing it. No, not freezing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that being said, yes, that's
because you're using it for 4 weeks. Yeah, you don't need to freeze coffee that you're going to use within 4 weeks.
And just make sure that you just try to squeeze out as much air out of it. Heat seal it. Throw it in, and it should be fine. And I think the canisters will help with that as well. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The thing that I think you don't want to do is fill up your hopper.
No.
And just let coffee sit in there and just grind. It's probably not the best. It is actually not good. If coffees are sitting in your hopper for longer than a week, you will notice some decent aging on those beans in a not so great way.
And again, it really depends, right? You can argue it also both ways. You're 100% right. It's not good for how the coffee is going to age. It's not the best. The hopper is not the best storage, hands down. But also, I'm to play devil's advocate, I'm thinking for convenience sake, if you do have about 1 week's worth of coffee in a hopper, and you're at the point where you're just buying coffee that tastes round, chocolatey, doesn't really matter. I'm it's not optimal, but also just for convenience sake, it really depends. I think most of our listeners are people who are probably buying complex coffees, and to see a coffee just in a hopper that is going to age much quicker, you want to savor all the complexities and the nuances of the coffee. It's not the best. But again, if you're just a drinker that's getting just, I don't know.
100%. And I think that's why we started with saying, hey, if you are paying a little more for your coffee,
yes, that's context.
You care and you have a coffee setup, there shouldn't be no reason that you should be neglecting your storage. I think another thing to keep in mind is in terms of freezing coffee. This might be a hot take, but I don't think it's necessary to freeze roasted coffee.
I don't either. I told someone that and they wait, what? Out of all people, you would say that? I was yeah.
If you just use the Ziploc function and suck out as much oxygen out and just keep it in the bag that you purchased, and from opening the bag, you can finish it in a week.
Yeah.
there's no point. However, if you're like somebody who has a ton of coffee sitting around at home and it's all, aging before your eyes, but you want to hold it at its peak freshness, vacuum seal it, throw it in the freezer. But literally, if you're just diving into one bag at a time,
no need.
It's I mean, I guess it looks cool, but that's
or I mean, unless you got like some, crazy COE coffee that you're like, this
but
is
you
a
only have
special
100 grams
treat.
of that.
Yeah, and so you're gonna have to redial it in after you pop it. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of a person has like 2 pounds of COE coffee? You have like $500 worth of coffee, and you're like, I mean, there's people. I thinking of, there are people who listen to our podcast that do have that and have access to that kind of coffee. I mean, when I had my Mikava coffee, my competition coffee, the 5-pound bag I had was around almost retail, probably almost $500-$600.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even think about it. I did not vacuum seal my competition coffee. I should have done that because if I would pop that at the anniversary of my competition, even though I didn't compete this year, popping that over right now,
that would be cool.
I brewed it on the fellow oat. I have the parameters. I have a good starting point. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Now you're making me regret all my decisions.
Yeah.
It would have been so nice.
But Sergi's literally the only one that should be doing that. unless you have again, I don't think it's that beneficial. But if you have like 20 bags and you want to all save them, throw it in the freezer. It's probably a good idea. But long story short is just like, hey, take care of your coffee, store it well. Don't overbuy on a ton of coffee, but also don't underbuy, I guess. And just store it well because it actually makes a big difference. One last thing I just want to say is like, I've been looking at those Weber bean cellars and I'm like,
they're so aesthetically pleasing.
They're so cool. If you buy them without, they're decently affordable. If you buy it without the tray adds like another $100 or something. Yeah. But if you just buy the bean cellars, the cool thing is they have a one-way valve in the lid. So you fill it up and then it's actually, if it's degassing, it's doing the same, displacing oxygen. It's getting released out of the valve. So it's keeping your coffee fresh. And that's a big one. Actually, I really want to. And especially if you fill that bean cellar up to the top, you're actually displacing even more oxygen because there's less room for just air. That's like a really good way to keep, I think, coffee fresh. Like I really want to go pick up some bean cellars.
If we ever have a cafe, that's how we would portion single cups.
Yeah.
Because even if, what do you think about like the fact that if it was for the day?
The Asian cafes that have like the bean cellars are like on the wall. It looks so
Didn't
sick.
Tanner have something like that too?
Yeah, Tanner actually.
I think Tanner was the first person I saw that and I was like, damn, dude.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Cool. Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
So, but I agree. Side note, and this is my final thought. From a roasting perspective, like, do you think we would ever dabble in the idea of like, if we get like a very, very rare, nice geisha is basically selling out and taking the last roast, vacuum sealing it, or vacuum sealing the green of the last roast or something like that? Because green coffee storage, we didn't talk about that from a roaster's perspective. We might do another episode on that. That's a whole different game because that's very important too. But storing that and re-releasing the coffee a year later, let's say.
That'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
Passenger does that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They have like 3-4 year old coffee. They actually, I was reading on their website, they're crushing it on that end. They have a whole,
really?
They rent space in like a commercial food freezer.
Gotcha. Like a walk-in storage.
Yeah.
Like a storage unit that's frozen. Yeah.
And they just deliver all their green in there. And they make trips every week to take out the coffee out of the freezer, bring it to the roastery.
Let it our green room, warming room, pre-roast.
And it's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like that is, and they have like 3-4 year old green in there. Yeah. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Because there's some of these lots, like that's the cool thing about coffee. It's like you can buy the same coffee from the same producer, but it's going to taste different, similar to wine.
Yeah.
That's why there's a year marked, on wine when you're like, oh, this is a 2018 lot, nice. Dang. I didn't know someone already does it. I thought I had an original idea. Boo.
Yeah. So, well, friends, there it is. Some roasted coffee storage tips for you. I don't know. Hopefully this inspired you with some new ideas of how you can store coffee, or you'll just stop freezing your roasted coffee because you realize it's maybe not that beneficial. Or maybe it is.
Stop wasting plastic.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, there you have it, folks. Remember, as we always say, reflect what's good.